Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars. The Earth Federation vessel Horizon's Edge had been traveling for 3 months to reach this spot near Jupiter. Jake had been a space commander for 10 years, but he had never seen anything like what was happening now. The space around Jupiter began to bend and twist. Colors that had no names danced across the darkness. Then, like magic, huge silver ships appeared from nowhere. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time. The ships were so big that they blocked out the stars behind them. "Sir, we're getting a message," said Lieutenant Carol Wood from her station. Her voice shook a little. No one had ever talked to aliens before. Jake nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge gasp. The alien was tall and thin, with skin that looked like living crystal. Light moved through its body like water. Its eyes were large and dark, filled with what looked like ancient wisdom. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the alien said. Its voice was like music mixed with wind chimes. "I am High Counselor Vex High of the Zephyrian Confederacy. We come in peace and friendship." Jake felt his heart beating fast. This was the moment that would change everything for humanity. He cleared his throat and spoke clearly. "Welcome to our solar system. I am Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Federation. We are honored to meet you." The alien's face showed something that might have been a smile. "We have watched your species for some time. You show great promise. We would like to learn about each other and perhaps become friends." Dr. Lisa Grant, the mission's alien expert, stepped forward. She had studied every theory about first contact, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The Zephyrian was even more beautiful than she had imagined any alien could be. "We would welcome the chance to learn about your people," Lisa said. "We have so many questions." High Counselor Vex High's crystal skin sparkled with what seemed like pleasure. "As do we. Perhaps we can meet in person soon. We have much to discuss." 3 days later, the first meeting took place on Luna Station, humanity's research base on the moon. Jake watched as the Zephyrian shuttle landed with grace that made human ships look clumsy. The aliens moved like dancers, their crystal skin catching the light from Earth. Lisa could hardly contain her excitement as she met the alien scientists. They were eager to share information about their culture, their technology, and their peaceful way of life. The Zephyrian spoke of a great confederation of planets where different species lived together in harmony. "We have brought gifts," said Dr. Zithera, the Zephyrian science leader. She held up a small device that glowed with soft blue light. "This is a power cell that can run your largest city for a full year. It uses no fuel and creates no waste." Captain Ben Torres, who was in charge of the joint research projects, felt amazed. "This could solve our energy problems forever." He whispered to Jake. Ambassador Kate Sullivan was busy working on trade agreements. The Zephyrians seemed interested in Earth's art and music. They offered advanced medical technology that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for thousands of years. "They want to help us," Kate told Jake during a private meeting. "They're offering us things we've only dreamed of. Clean energy, perfect medicine, faster than light travel. All they want in return is some of our cultural items and the chance to study our creativity." Jake nodded, but something felt wrong. He couldn't put his finger on it, but the Zephyrians seemed too perfect, too generous. In his experience, nobody gave away valuable things without wanting something big in return. Marine Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez was assigned to security for the alien visits. He was a simple soldier who didn't understand alien politics, but he knew how to watch and listen. Something about the Zephyrians bothered him, though he couldn't say what. While the diplomats talked and the scientists shared knowledge, Sam paid attention to the small things. He noticed that the Zephyrians always moved in groups. They never seemed to be alone. They asked many questions about Earth's military, its defenses, and its population. "They're mapping us," Sam told his sergeant quietly. "Every question they ask is about our weaknesses or our resources." His sergeant, a veteran named Frank Hayes, shook his head. "You're being paranoid, Sam. They're just curious. Wouldn't you ask the same questions if you met aliens?" But Sam wasn't convinced. He started keeping notes of everything the Zephyrians asked about: food production, mineral resources, military bases, population centers. It was starting to look like intelligence gathering. The breakthrough came by accident. Sam was walking through the restricted areas of Luna Station when he saw a Zephyrian device that had been left behind. It was still glowing, and when he touched it, holographic images appeared in the air. What he saw made his blood run cold. The images showed Earth, but not as the Zephyrians had described it to the human negotiators. Earth was marked with symbols that looked like targets. Population centers were highlighted in red. Military bases were marked with special symbols, but the worst part was the text. Sam couldn't read the alien writing, but the computer translation was clear enough. Earth was listed as Resource World 7754X with a status of peaceful integration. Planned. Sam's hands shook as he copied the data to his portable drive. He had to tell someone about this, but who would believe him? The Zephyrians were so friendly, so helpful. Everyone was excited about the alliance. He decided to go to Commander Morrison. Jake had seemed cautious about the aliens from the beginning. Maybe he would listen. "Commander," Sam said, bursting into Jake's office without knocking, "I found something. The Zephyrians aren't what they seem." Jake looked up from his reports. "What are you talking about, Lieutenant?" Sam showed him the data he had copied. As Jake read the translated text, his face grew pale. Peaceful integration was described as a process where alien species were gradually made dependent on Zephyrian technology and slowly absorbed into their empire. It had been done to 17 other species over the past 1,000 years. "They're not here to be our friends," Sam said quietly. "They're here to take over our planet." Jake stared at the data for a long time. Everything suddenly made sense. Generous gifts, the eagerness to help, the detailed questions about Earth's defenses. It was all part of a plan to make humanity dependent on alien technology. "We need to tell the others," Jake said finally, "but we need to be careful. If the Zephyrians find out we know their real purpose, they might decide to stop being peaceful." The next few days were the longest of Jake's life. He watched as his fellow humans continued to work with the aliens, not knowing they were helping to plan their own conquest. Lisa was teaching the Zephyrians about human biology. Ben was sharing Earth's technological secrets. Kate was negotiating agreements that would give the aliens access to Earth's resources. Finally, Jake couldn't stand it anymore. He called a secret meeting with the senior staff and showed them Sam's discovery. The room fell silent as everyone realized what it meant. "We have to do something," Lisa said, her voice barely a whisper. "We can't let them take over our world." "But what can we do?" Ben asked. "Their technology is so far ahead of ours. We can't fight them." Jake looked around the room at his team. They were scared, but they were also angry. Humanity had been tricked, and nobody likes being made a fool of. "We're going to tell them we know," Jake said finally. "And we're going to give them one chance to leave peacefully." The confrontation happened the next morning. Jake stood before High Counselor Vex High with Sam's data in his hands. The alien's crystal skin seemed to dim when Jake showed him the evidence. "You have been studying us not as friends, but as a future conquest," Jake said. "We know about your 17 other peaceful integrations." High Counselor Vex High's beautiful features hardened. The musical quality left his voice. "You are not supposed to find that information so quickly. Usually, it takes species much longer to understand their situation. So you admit it, Jake said. There is no point in pretending now, the alien replied. Yes, we plan to integrate your species into our confederation. It is better for you to join willingly than to resist. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. And what if we refuse? High Counselor HFY's dark eyes seemed to grow colder. Then you will learn why 17 other species chose to cooperate, rather than fight. The golden age of human-alien friendship was over. War was coming, and humanity was about to learn what it meant to fight for survival against an enemy that had conquered worlds across the galaxy. But the Zephyrians had made one mistake. They had studied human technology and human society, but they had not studied human nature. They were about to learn that some species become more dangerous when they are cornered. High Counselor HFY's message came 3 days later. It was broadcast to every communication device on Earth and throughout the solar system. The alien's crystal skin no longer sparkled with friendly light. Instead, it pulsed with cold, threatening energy. People of Earth, the alien leader said, his voice now harsh and commanding. You have seen the truth of our purpose. We offer you one final choice. Submit to Zephyrian rule, and you will be allowed to keep your current way of life. Your technology will remain at its present level, and your people will be protected. Resist, and you will face the full might of our military forces. President Ellen Hayes sat in the emergency bunker beneath the rebuilt United Nations building. Around her, the leaders of Earth's nations watched the alien message with growing fear. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others demanded that humanity fight. We've seen what happened to the other 17 species, said the president of the European Union. They all chose to fight at first. Now they're all part of the Zephyrian Empire. Why should we be different? President Hayes stood up slowly. She had been a fighter pilot before becoming a politician. She knew what it meant to face impossible odds. Because we're human, she said simply, and humans don't give up. She walked to the communication console and opened a channel to the Zephyrian fleet. Her message was short and clear. No. The alien response was immediate and devastating. The Zephyrian ships moved into position around Earth and began their attack. But they didn't use conventional weapons. Instead, they used Earth's own atmosphere. Against its people, Dr. Rachel Stone watched from her laboratory in Colorado as the readings came in. The aliens were generating massive electromagnetic pulses that turned the atmosphere into a giant electrical storm. Lightning struck constantly, but this wasn't normal lightning. It was controlled, directed, and deadly. They're frying our electronics, Rachel told her assistant, Dr. Mark Collins. Every computer, every power grid, every communication system. They're sending us back to the Stone Age. Admiral Chris Palmer tried to coordinate Earth's defense from his command center, but it was nearly impossible. With most electronic systems dead, he had to rely on old-fashioned radio equipment and messengers on motorcycles. The advanced space fleet that humanity had built over the past century was useless without its computer systems. We need to get our ships working, Palmer told his staff. Find me engineers who know how to fix electronics after electromagnetic damage. But the Zephyrians weren't finished. As Earth's defenses crumbled, alien landing craft began descending from the mother ships. They were filled with Zephyrian soldiers, who looked very different from the peaceful diplomats humanity had first met. These aliens were bigger, stronger, and covered in armor that seemed to be made of the same crystal material as their skin. They carried weapons that fired bolts of pure energy. When the energy hit a human, it didn't just kill them. It turned them into dust. General Mike Foster watched in horror as his best tank division was destroyed in minutes. The Zephyrian weapons went through armor like it was paper. His soldiers' bullets bounced off the alien armor without leaving a scratch. Fall back, Foster ordered through his radio. All units, fall back to the secondary positions. But there was nowhere to fall back to. The aliens were landing in every major city on Earth. New York fell first, then London, then Tokyo. The alien soldiers moved through the streets like they were taking a walk in the park. Human resistance seemed to bounce off them like raindrops. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Price was leading a desperate defense of Denver when she saw her first Zephyrian soldier up close. The alien was 8 feet tall and moved with mechanical precision. It pointed its weapon at her squad and fired. The energy bolt missed Amy by inches and hit the building behind her. The entire wall simply vanished, turned into atoms so small they couldn't be seen. Amy realized that the aliens weren't just more advanced than humans. They were so far ahead that it was like cavemen trying to fight jet fighters. "We can't beat them with guns," she told her sergeant, a tough veteran named Tony Blake. "We need to find another way." Tony was pinned down behind a burned-out car, watching alien soldiers advance down the street. He had been a Marine for 15 years, and had never seen anything like this. His men were dying around him, and their weapons were useless. "What other way?" Tony asked. "We can't hurt them, and they can kill us just by pointing at us." That's when Amy noticed something strange. The alien soldiers were very good at fighting, but they seemed to move in patterns. They were predictable. It was like they were following a program instead of thinking for themselves. They're not creative, Amy realized. They do the same thing over and over. If we can figure out their pattern, maybe we can surprise them. Dr. Rachel Stone was thinking the same thing in her underground laboratory. As she studied the alien attack patterns, she noticed that they always did things the same way. They landed in the same formation, advanced along the same routes, and used the same tactics. "They're not adapting," she told Mark. "They're using the same strategy they probably used on the other 17 species. But what if we don't fight the way they expect?" The breakthrough came when Tony Blake's squad was cornered in a subway tunnel. The aliens had them surrounded, and there was no way out. Tony was sure he was going to die when something incredible happened. The stress of the situation, the fear of death, and the rage at being helpless suddenly combined in Tony's mind. He felt something change inside his head. It was like a switch had been flipped. Suddenly, he could think faster than he ever had before. He could see the alien attack pattern before it happened. He could predict where they would move, where they would fire, and how they would react. It was like he could read their minds. "Move left in 3 seconds," Tony whispered to his squad. "Then duck and roll, right?" His soldiers obeyed without question. The alien energy bolts missed them by inches. Tony led his men through a complex series of moves that kept them alive while they retreated deeper into the tunnel. "How did you know?" asked Private Danny Walsh, a young soldier who had joined the Marines straight out of high school. "I don't know," Tony admitted. "I just knew." Similar reports started coming in from all over the world. Human soldiers who had been pushed to their breaking point were suddenly fighting with incredible skill. They were still outgunned, but they were no longer helpless. Dr. Stone received the first scientific report from a field medic named Captain Dan Murphy. He had been treating wounded soldiers in a battlefield hospital when he noticed something unusual in their blood tests. "Their brain chemistry is changing," Dan reported over the radio. "The soldiers who are fighting better have different hormone levels and neural activity. It's like their brains are evolving in real time." Rachel felt excited and terrified at the same time. "Get me samples," she ordered. "I need to understand what's happening to them." The samples confirmed her suspicions. The human soldiers who had been exposed to extreme stress were undergoing rapid genetic changes. Their brains were developing new neural pathways, and their bodies were producing chemicals that enhanced their reflexes and awareness. "Evolution doesn't usually work this fast," Mark said, looking at the test results. This should take thousands of years. Unless the genetic potential was already there, Rachel replied. What if humans have always had this ability, but it only activates under extreme stress? Meanwhile, the war was changing. The Zephyrians had expected to conquer Earth in a few days, but human resistance was getting stronger instead of weaker. The alien soldiers were still winning most battles, but they were taking casualties for the first time. High Counselor Vex High studied the reports from his flagship. This was not how the conquest was supposed to go. The other 17 species had surrendered after seeing the hopelessness of their situation. Humans were different. Instead of giving up, they were getting more dangerous. Increase the pressure. Vex High ordered his military commander. Use heavier weapons. Show them that resistance is futile. But the Zephyrians were making the same mistake they had made during their first contact with humanity. They were underestimating human adaptability. Every new weapon they used, every new tactic they tried, only pushed more humans past their breaking point. And when humans reached their breaking point, something wonderful and terrible happened. They stopped being ordinary humans and became something else. Something that could fight back against impossible odds. The siege of Denver lasted 47 days. During that time, Amy Price watched her soldiers change from frightened humans into something that moved like predators. They learned to hunt the alien soldiers through the ruined city. Tony Blake was no longer the same person he had been before the war. His eyes reflected light like an animal's. He could go days without sleep and weeks without much food. Most importantly, he could think several steps ahead of the alien soldiers. We're not just fighting them anymore, Tony told Amy during a brief break in the battle. We're hunting them. Amy nodded. She had felt the change in herself, too. The fear was gone, replaced by something cold and calculating. She looked at her soldiers and saw the same transformation in all of them. They were still human, but they were becoming something more. Something that could fight back against the Zephyrians. Something that could win the alley. The siege of Denver had been going on for 47 days when Sergeant Tony Blake experienced the full transformation. He was pinned down in the ruins of what used to be a shopping mall, watching alien soldiers advance through the smoke and debris. His squad was down to 3 men. Private Danny Walsh was wounded, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Corporal Rick Barnes was almost out of ammunition. Tony himself had been awake for 3 days straight, living on nothing but adrenaline and the will to survive. That's when it happened. The change that Dr. Rachel Stone had been documenting in her laboratory finally reached its complete form. Tony felt his mind expand in ways that should have been impossible. He could hear the alien soldiers' footsteps from 3 floors away. He could smell their strange metallic scent through the smoke. Most incredibly, he could sense their thoughts and intentions like they were broadcasting them directly into his brain. Danny, move to the left column in 5 seconds, Tony whispered. Rick, there's an alien behind the escalator. He's going to fire in exactly 8 seconds. His soldiers obeyed without question. They had learned to trust Tony's impossible knowledge during the past week. The alien energy bolt missed Danny by inches and hit the wall where he had been standing. Tony moved with fluid grace. It seemed to defy physics. He rolled across the open space while the alien was recharging its weapon. By the time the Zephyrian soldier realized what was happening, Tony was behind him. The alien turned just in time to see Tony's hands close around its crystal armor. The armor that had been invulnerable to bullets and explosives cracked like glass under Tony's grip. The alien soldier made a sound like wind chimes breaking, and then it was dead. How did you do that? Danny asked, staring at the cracked alien. Armor. Tony looked at his hands. They didn't look any different, but he could feel the strength flowing through them. I don't know, he said honestly. I just knew I could. Similar reports were coming in from all over the world. Human soldiers, who had been pushed to their absolute limits, were developing abilities that seemed impossible. They were stronger, faster, and smarter than any human had ever been. Dr. Rachel Stone was working around the clock in her underground laboratory, studying blood samples from the enhanced soldiers. What she was seeing defied everything she knew about human biology. Their DNA is rewriting itself, she told Mark Collins, her assistant. The genetic changes are happening in real time. It's like their bodies are following a blueprint that was hidden in their genes all along. Mark looked at the test results with amazement and fear. But what are they becoming? Are they still human? Rachel didn't have an answer. The enhanced soldiers were definitely still human in many ways, but they were also something new, something that had never existed before on Earth. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Price was leading the first unit of fully enhanced soldiers in a counterattack against the alien positions. Her team moved through the ruined streets of Denver like a pack of wolves hunting prey. The change in Amy was dramatic. She had been a good soldier before the war, but now she was something else entirely. She could run for hours without getting tired. She could see in complete darkness. Most importantly, she could coordinate with her team through what felt like telepathic communication. 3 aliens in the building ahead, she whispered to her squad. 2 more on the roof. Rick, you take the roof. Danny, circle around to the back. Tony, you're with me. The attack was perfect. The alien soldiers had no time to react before the enhanced humans were on them. Amy moved with predatory grace, her modified combat knife slicing through alien armor like it was made of paper. Zephyrians began to retreat from human-held territories, but their withdrawal only made the situation worse. Each battle, each moment of desperate survival, pushed more humans across the evolutionary threshold. Captain Dan Murphy was treating wounded soldiers at a field hospital when he noticed the change in himself. He had been working non-stop for days, operating on injured soldiers with primitive medical equipment. The stress should have killed him, but instead it made him stronger. His hands became incredibly steady. His eyes could see details that should have been impossible to detect. He could sense the condition of his patient's internal organs without using any medical equipment. He was saving lives that should have been lost. Doctor, how are you doing this? Asked Nurse Betty Williams, who had been assisting him. You're performing surgery that should require a full operating room. Dan looked at his hands. They were covered in blood, but they were as steady as a rock. I can see inside them, he said quietly. I can see what's wrong and how to fix it. The enhanced humans were developing new senses that regular humans didn't possess. They could detect electromagnetic fields, see across broader ranges of light, and feel vibrations through solid matter. They were becoming perfect predators, but the cost was becoming clear. The enhanced humans were losing something important. In their transformation, they still cared about their fellow soldiers, but they were becoming cold and calculating in ways that worried their commanders. Commander Jake Morrison watched his crew undergo the transformation with growing concern. The enhanced humans were incredibly effective in combat, but they were also becoming something that scared him. They looked at regular humans with a detached curiosity that reminded him of how scientists looked at laboratory animals. Sir, you should consider the enhancement process, Lieutenant Carol Wood told him. She had been one of the first to undergo the full transformation. It would help you understand what we're becoming. Jake studied Carol's face. She looked human, but her eyes reflected light like a cat's. When she spoke, her voice had harmonics that made his spine tingle with instinctive fear. What exactly are you becoming? Jake asked. Carol considered the question carefully. We're becoming what humanity needs to survive, she said finally. were becoming the perfect weapon against the Zephyrians. The war was changing in ways that neither side had expected. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting an enemy that was adapting faster than they could develop countermeasures. Every tactic they used was quickly understood and countered by the enhanced humans. Counselor Vex High studied the reports from his military commanders with growing alarm. The human resistance was not just continuing. It was getting stronger and more effective with each passing day. "They're learning to think like us," reported General Kethmer, the Zephyrian military leader. "But they're also using tactics that we've never seen before. They're becoming unpredictable. How is that possible?" Vex High demanded. "We've studied their military history. We know their capabilities." "Not anymore," Kethner replied grimly. "They're not the same species we first contacted. They're becoming something new." The enhanced humans had indeed learned to think like their enemies. They understood Zephyrian psychology, technology, and tactics better than the aliens understood them. But they were also developing new forms of warfare that were uniquely human. Tony Blake led his squad through a series of underground tunnels that connected to the alien command post. The enhanced humans had learned to use Earth's infrastructure in ways the aliens couldn't predict. They moved through sewers, subway systems, and underground networks like ghosts. "Remember," Tony whispered to his team, "we're not just fighting to win battles anymore. We're fighting to hunt them down completely." The word hunt was becoming more common in the enhanced humans' vocabulary. They no longer thought of the Zephyrians as enemies to be defeated. They thought of them as prey to be eliminated. Dr. Rachel Stone documented this change with growing horror. The enhanced humans were developing pack-hunting behaviors that were more animal than human. They communicated through subsonic vocalizations that regular humans couldn't hear. They were becoming a new kind of predator. "They're losing their humanity," she told Mark. "They still care about protecting Earth, but they're becoming something that regular humans can't relate to." Mark nodded grimly. "The question is, what happens when the war is over? Will they still see us as part of their species, or will they see us as something inferior?" The enhanced humans were asking themselves the same questions. Amy Price stood on the roof of a ruined building, looking down at the city below. She could see regular humans moving through the streets, and she felt a strange disconnect from them. Seemed so slow, so weak, so limited. They couldn't see what she could see, couldn't think as fast as she could think, couldn't fight as effectively as she could fight. Were they really the same species anymore? "We're protecting them," she told Tony, who had joined her on the roof. "But are we protecting them from the aliens? Or are we protecting them from us?" Tony understood what she meant. The enhanced humans were becoming something that regular humans might need protection from. They were stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than any human had ever been, but they were also humanity's only hope for survival. Without the enhanced humans, the Zephyrians would have conquered Earth in a matter of days. With them, humanity had a chance to not just survive, but to win. The transformation was spreading beyond the military. Civilians who had been exposed to extreme stress were also undergoing the change. Dr. Stone's research team was largely composed of enhanced humans now, and they were developing new technologies at an incredible pace. We've learned too. The tide of war changed overnight. What had been a desperate fight for survival became something much more terrifying. The enhanced humans stopped thinking about defense and started thinking about hunting. Colonel Steve Lewis commanded the first deep space mission crewed entirely by enhanced humans. His ship, the Retribution, had been built using reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology, but the enhanced humans had improved it in ways the aliens never imagined. "We have the location of their retreat fleet," Steve told his crew. 3-star. Systems away, moving toward their nearest colony. "We're going to track them down." The crew of the Retribution was unlike anything that had ever existed in human history. They were connected to each other through a form of communication that was part telepathy, part electromagnetic signaling. They could coordinate their actions with a precision that made them operate like a single organism. Navigation. Officer Linda Chun could sense the gravitational currents between stars. Engineer Pete Williams could feel the ship's systems as if they were part of his own body. Weapons Officer Gary Brooks could target enemy ships across impossible distances with perfect accuracy. Contact, Linda announced. Zephyrian fleet detected. 7 ships moving in standard retreat formation. Steve smiled, but it wasn't a human smile anymore. It was the expression of a predator that had found its prey. Begin the hunt. The attack on the Zephyrian fleet was unlike anything that had happened in galactic history. The enhanced humans didn't just fight the aliens. They studied them, analyzed their every move, and then systematically destroyed them. The retribution moved through space with grace that defied physics. The enhanced humans had learned to work with their ship's systems in ways that regular humans couldn't comprehend. They didn't just pilot the ship, they became the ship. Disabling their engines first, Gary announced. We want them alive for. Questioning. The Zephyrian ships had been designed to fight against conventional enemies. They were not prepared for opponents who could predict their moves before they made them. The enhanced humans cut through their defenses like sharks through a school of fish. One by one, the alien ships were disabled. The enhanced humans then cut through their hulls with modified mining equipment, moving through the darkened corridors with the patient efficiency of professional killers. The Zephyrian crew members tried to fight back, but it was hopeless. ENCHANCED humans moved through their ship like they had been born in zero gravity. They knew exactly where each alien was hiding, what weapons they carried, and how they would try to escape. We have prisoners, Steve reported back to Earth. Beginning interrogation procedures. The interrogation was not torture in the traditional sense. The enhanced humans had developed techniques that were far more effective than pain. They could sense fear, read body language, and detect lies with impossible accuracy. Within hours, they had learned everything the Zephyrian prisoners knew. The location of every alien colony, every military base, every supply depot. The enhanced humans were building a complete map of Zephyrian space back on Earth. Dr. Rachel Stone was documenting the changes in the enhanced humans with growing alarm. Her research team was now almost entirely composed of enhanced individuals, and they were developing new technologies at a pace that frightened her. They're not just smarter than regular humans, she told Mark Collins. They're thinking in ways that regular humans can't understand. They're developing a collective intelligence. Mark nodded grimly. He was one of the few regular humans left on the research team. The enhanced humans were polite to him, but he could see the way they looked at him, like he was a child who couldn't understand adult conversation. Are they still human? Mark asked. Rachel didn't answer immediately. She was studying brain scans from the enhanced humans, and what she saw terrified her. Their neural patterns were unlike anything that had ever existed on Earth. They're human in the sense that they evolved from humans, she said finally. But they're also something completely new, something that has never existed before in the galaxy. The enhanced humans were not just developing new technologies. They were developing new forms of warfare that were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were learning to think like their enemies, to predict their moves, and to counter every strategy before it was implemented. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Price was leading a special operations team that had been assigned to hunt down Zephyrian command staff. Her team moved through enemy territory with the patience and precision of professional assassins. The Galactic Council had existed for over 2,000 years. Representatives from 47 different species met on the neutral space station called Harmony to discuss trade, resolve disputes, and maintain peace across known space. Never, in their history, had they faced a crisis like this. Ambassador Velthur of the crystalline hegemony stood before the emergency assembly, his translucent body flickering with nervous energy. "The reports are coming in from across Zephyrian space," he announced. "Human forces are systematically eliminating every Zephyrian installation they can find." The assembled aliens murmured with fear and confusion. The Zephyrians had been one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. The idea that they were being hunted to extinction by a species that had only achieved space travel a few centuries ago seemed impossible. "How many Zephyrian worlds have fallen?" asked Counselor Thex of the Hive Mind Collective, her insectoid features betraying no emotion. 17 so far," Velthur replied. "But the humans aren't conquering these worlds. They're sterilizing them. No Zephyrian survivors are being found." A wave of shock ran through the assembly. Conquest was one thing. Total extermination was something else entirely. Most galactic species had agreed long ago that genocide was unacceptable, even in warfare. "We need to send a diplomatic mission." "To Earth," suggested Elder Korth of the Aquatic Federation. "Perhaps we can negotiate with these humans, convince them to show mercy." But Ambassador Kate Sullivan, one of the few regular humans still in a diplomatic position, shook her head sadly. "I don't think you understand what humanity has become," she said. "The humans you would be negotiating with are not the same species that the Zephyrians first contacted." Kate had been watching the transformation of her own species with growing horror. The enhanced humans had replaced most of Earth's government with something they called the Apex Collective. They made decisions based on cold logic and evolutionary advantage, not on human emotion or morality. "What do you mean?" asked Velthur. Kate chose her words carefully. "The war changed us. It forced us to evolve in ways that no species has ever evolved before. The enhanced humans are still technically human, but they think differently than we do. They don't feel emotions the way regular humans feel them." General Amy Price had indeed become something that regular humans could barely recognize. She stood in the command center of the largest human space fleet ever assembled, coordinating the systematic elimination of Zephyrian colonies with mechanical precision. "Target confirmed," reported Colonel Steve Lewis from the bridge of the Retribution. "Zephyrian colony world Kethver. Population approximately 2 million. No military installations." Amy felt no hesitation. "Eliminate all Zephyrian life forms. Secure any useful technology. Leave the planet suitable for future human colonization." The attack on Kethver was swift and efficient. The enhanced humans descended on the planet like a plague, hunting down every Zephyrian civilian with the same methodical thoroughness they had shown against military targets. The aliens tried to surrender, tried to negotiate, tried to flee. Nothing worked. The enhanced humans had decided that the Zephyrian species represented a permanent threat to human evolution, and they were eliminating that threat completely. Dr. Rachel Stone was now the last regular human in her research facility. Around her, her former colleagues worked with inhuman efficiency, their enhanced minds focused on perfecting new technologies and strategies. They no longer spoke to her except to make their daily offer. "The enhancement process is ready for you," said Dr. Lisa Grant, who had once been Rachel's close friend. Lisa's eyes now reflected light like polished metal, and her voice carried harmonics that made Rachel's skin crawl. "You would understand us better if you evolved," added Dr. Mark Collins, who had undergone the enhancement process the week before. "You would see why our actions are necessary." Rachel looked at her former colleagues and felt like she was staring at aliens. They looked human, but everything about them had changed. They moved with predatory grace, communicated through electromagnetic pulses, and showed no emotion except cold curiosity. "What happens to regular humans in your new world?" Rachel asked. Lisa considered the question with the same detachment she might show when studying a laboratory specimen. "You will be protected," she said finally. We will ensure your survival and basic comfort. You are our genetic ancestors, after all." The word ancestors sent a chill down Rachel's spine. The enhanced humans no longer saw regular humans as part of their species. They saw them as evolutionary predecessors, primitive, relatives who needed to be cared for, but could never be considered equals. The enhanced humans had not stopped with the Zephyrians. They had begun analyzing every species in the galaxy, determining which ones possessed the technology or motivation to potentially threaten Earth. Their definition of potential threat was expanding with each new piece of intelligence they gathered. The crystalline hegemony has energy weapons that could damage our ships, reported Captain Dan Murphy from his intelligence analysis station. The Hive Mind Collective has the ability to coordinate millions of soldiers simultaneously. The Aquatic Federation controls 3 major trade routes that could be used to organize an embargo against Earth. Amy nodded as she reviewed the threat assessments. Priority targets identified. Begin Phase 2 operations. Phase 2 was the systematic elimination of any species that could potentially threaten human dominance. The enhanced humans approached this task with the same clinical efficiency they had shown against the Zephyrians. High Counselor Vex High was now the last surviving member of the original Zephyrian leadership. He had been captured during the fall of the Zephyrian homeworld and was being held in a human detention facility for interrogation. "Why are you doing this?" he asked Amy during one of their sessions. "We offered to leave your solar system in peace. We could have coexisted." Amy looked at the alien with the detached interest of a scientist studying an interesting specimen. "You made us evolve," she explained. "You forced us to become something that could survive your conquest attempt. But evolution doesn't stop just because the immediate threat is gone. So you're going to exterminate everyone?" Vex High asked in horror. "We're going to eliminate threats," Amy corrected. "Your species proved that it was willing to conquer and enslave other races. That makes you a permanent threat to human security. Other species possess technologies or resources that could be used against us. They are also threats." The logic was terrifying in its simplicity. The enhanced humans had decided that any species with the capability to harm humanity was a threat that needed to be eliminated. Since most advanced civilizations possessed such capabilities, the enhanced humans were essentially planning to exterminate intelligent life throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council's attempt at diplomacy failed completely. Ambassador Kate Sullivan tried to represent regular humanity's position, but she had no authority to speak for the enhanced humans who actually controlled Earth's military and government. "We're willing to negotiate," Kate told the assembled aliens. "Regular humans don't want this war to continue. But the enhanced humans don't see it as a war anymore. They see it as pest control." Elder Korth of the Aquatic Federation made a desperate plea. "Surely some compromise is possible. We could sign non-aggression treaties, establish neutral zones, agree to technology limitations." Kate shook her head sadly. "You don't understand how they think now. They don't trust treaties or agreements. They only trust elimination of threats. And they consider almost everyone to be a potential threat." The enhanced humans had indeed moved beyond such concepts as diplomacy or negotiation. They had become perfect predators, and perfect predators don't negotiate with their prey. Steve Lewis commanded a fleet of 50 ships, crewed entirely by enhanced humans. They moved through space with coordination that seemed impossible, each ship acting as part of a larger organism. They were hunting down the remnants of the Zephyrian military with patient thoroughness. "Last Zephyrian fleet located," reported Linda Chun from the navigation station. "They're trying to reach the edge of known space." "Intercept and eliminate," Steve ordered without hesitation. "No survivors." The final battle of the Zephyrian-human war lasted less than an hour. The alien ships were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and completely outmatched by enhanced human tactics. When it was over, the Zephyrian species was extinct, but the enhanced humans felt no satisfaction from their victory. They had eliminated one threat, but dozens of others remained. The crystalline hegemony still possessed energy weapons. The hive mind collective still had their coordination abilities. The Aquatic Federation still controlled important trade routes. Begin operations against secondary targets, Amy ordered her commanders. The galaxy must be secured. Dr. Rachel Stone made her final research log as she watched the enhanced humans prepare for their next phase of operations. Around her, the facility hummed with activity as enhanced humans developed new weapons, new strategies, and new technologies for galactic conquest. They're not evil, she recorded. That's what makes this so terrifying. They genuinely believe they're protecting humanity by eliminating potential threats. They feel no hatred for their enemies, no anger at resistance. They simply see problems that need to be solved. She paused,